for taking the time out. So for today's session, we're going to discuss the role of edge computing in disrupting various industries. So for the discussion, we have Mr. Claude Schuck, a Regional Director, Middle East at Veeam, Mr. Saymaad Mansoor, Head of IT at Siddco Group, Mr. George Akhras, CIO at AMSI, and Mr. Arun Tewary, Strategic Advisor and Director at Finesse Technologies. And we could also possibly be joined by Mr. Tamer Hamed, CIO at Ducab. Somewhere during the session, I guess. So to kick off, obviously this is the age of digital transformation, and we have been talking about it the past 3-4 years. So there's been a lot of acceleration, and the pandemic has played a very key role in accelerating a lot of these IT initiatives, because it's a compulsion. Companies have had to carry on their productivity, carry on the work on remote basis. Their employees working from anywhere, out of anywhere, and working with accessing a lot of corporate data networks on a remote basis. So a lot of opportunities to accelerate a lot of digital processes, and a lot of challenges around it as well. So on that note, we look at edge computing, because this is also a related phenomenon. Obviously, this is where distributed computing is coming, and obviously it possibly resolves some of the issues with cloud computing in terms of a lot of the processing, a lot of the data storage also happens at the edge. Yeah. So this way, the load is getting distributed, and obviously there is it also resolves the latency issue in terms of accessing all those applications at the edge. So if I can start off with George, would you want to give your perspective on what this means, what edge computing means for in the middle of all this digital transformation?
You see, the whole experience now with IT revolves around the customer experience, and customer experience requires speed and accuracy of delivery of information. And in order to achieve that, edge computing has come in to provide a solution to this issue, whereby now if you use the cloud, there would be some latency, some delay in getting any information processed. But for example, with us, when we are working now with students, I work for a group of schools, and we are providing now online learning to students. If we want to have all the students wait until the video goes back to the server and gets processed, and then going back to them, this makes some delay, and the students would lose interest. So with edge computing, working on the edge is helping us and everyone around us to get a better experience with the tools and the technology that we are using.
Thank you. Mr. Arun Tewary, could you share your experience around this or your perspectives on it?
Yeah. In fact, in preparation for this session, I just started doing some more detailed studies. And then I got into the realization that although this term is becoming prominent now, it did exist historically also. And if I go back 30-35 years, when I was with Tata Steel, manufacturing sector, there again we had seen and deployed distributed computing. So inside the plant, we had set up remote job entry, smaller data centers, and there was a mainframe data center. It was a large setup. And the objective was to capture the data where it's happening, where it's getting generated, and avoid the traffic, because traffic has now become a problem both on the digital side as well as physical side. See the bigger cities and traffic congestion is everywhere. So the technology starts evolving itself and realigning, and more so with COVID and remote working or working anywhere, those type of concepts, you cannot anymore afford having a centralized route whereby you process all the everything way back in cloud and then get a response. You need to carve out a path whereby the processing which could be done at the source is done, adequate response is given, as my friend just now gave the example in terms of education sector, response, latency, and all those. So I'm seeing it becoming a very, very major force to reckon with, and technology is going to move in that direction very, very heavily. That's all. But I would like to clarify, it's not a technology. I think we are talking more about a topology, part of distributed computing. It's a topology, and it will mature. And I think more demand, it will get refined more and more.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Claude. Can I hear your perspectives from on the basis of Veeam's experience with data management?
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. So firstly, I'd like to agree with both my colleagues Arun and George. Speak about the importance and the acceleration of the edge and the edge computing, whether it be manufacturing or in education. For me, there's a couple of key things here. Obviously, this pandemic has sped up the need for edge to be more accessible, more user-friendly, and being able to transact on that level. But it speaks to exactly that. We spoke about centralized versus decentralized. Now, edge means decentralized. Now, at those data points, what's important for me, or those entry points, is security and accessibility, right? So at that point, how are you looking after your data and how are you securing the edge? That's important for me. And what's happening at the edge has evolved, right? So when we talk about edge, we even can talk about AI and machine learning type things, which happens at the edge. Now, that piece of data is important for a company to streamline its activity. So for me, it's about giving everyone access to edge in a secure manner, making sure you're able to access and keep that data, because that's your IP, that's your business. So that's the important thing of the disruption around edge for me, is data accessibility, data security.
Thank you. So Saymaad is also joined us. So obviously, he comes from a manufacturing background when working with manufacturing companies. So Saymaad, in your perspective, what's happening in the region, or from your experience, how do you see this manifesting?
Saymaad, you are on mute.
You're on mute, Saymaad.
Okay, now it's fine. So when it comes to manufacturing, some local data sets can't easily be migrated to the cloud, obviously.
Yeah.
Processing due to cost, bandwidth, timing constraints. The need to process data always remains constant locally. For example, in case of maintenance, if we are looking in the IoT, which is coming from machines, all of this information is pivotal for machine learning and AI. So edge computing is really relevant in collecting, aggregating, and filtering the data in order to send all these results coming from this data to the cloud, as it will be very helpful for AI and ML. Given the amount of processing required for AI and ML, manufacturers like us, we try to opt out for distributed performance and distributed processing across multiple nodes, rather than do everything in the cloud and then clog everything. And while we are on the topic of maintenance, what we see in the region is AR and VR, which is making its way into the region. Now, the challenge with VR headsets is that they are unable to process significant amount of data. And if we try processing this off the device into a cloud, this will result in a lot of latency, which is impractical. So if you're wearing a headset and you have a latency, you're telling how to process. This can be a big problem. So while edge computing can ensure consistent hybrid cloud architecture to process on-premise and easily move data to the cloud for long-term archival. This is what we see is very pivotal for us in terms of reporting. And
Thank you, Saymaad. Tamer, thanks for joining.
Hi everyone, thank you. Sorry I was late, but I got some
It's all right.
device. I'm very sorry for this. Thank you.
So obviously you don't know. I mean, I'll just quickly introduce. We have Mr. George on the panel from AMSI. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Claude Schuck from Veeam.
Yeah, hi Mr. Claude.
Mr. Saymaad from Siddco, and Mr.
Simon, my
Arun,
friend, yeah, we know each
and
other.
Mr. Arun from Finesse. Okay.
Hi Mr. Arun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Tamer, I would like to hear from you, your perspective on how edge computing is manifesting in the region, in the sector that you are. You're from the core manufacturing sector. So, how is this playing out in the middle of the pandemic, and also in terms of is this an empowering trend for the workforce
definitely.
as well as for the company?
I think in the last couple of years, or let me say in the last year specifically, it's a big game change on the automation and specifically on the IT age, or in the computing age, because as you mentioned, and as we discussed previously, me and you before, as you mentioned also, that situation is totally different right now. I mean, everybody now is looking for automation, and each and every single company now looking for how we can reach the proper automation of our organization or our business, where it can be easy, dynamic, and agility. Everybody's looking for the agility right now on their business, and the automation and the computerization is the main player on this game actually. So I think too many companies, and we went through different discussion on different forums also, discussing about the same. How we can approach and where we can change and how we can start the change on the organization. So if we are talking about the manufacturing, mainly you have to focus and look to the supply chain, because supply chain is the major player and the bread and butter of any manufacturing facility, specifically the manufacturing facility, if we be focused. If we are talking about the manufacturing itself, so we have to think about the IoTs and about the MES implementation, because that's giving everybody an access and a clear idea about the outputs and the capacity and the lead time and all of this. It will give exact visualization for the management, the team, and even the engineers on the floor. Nowadays, everybody is looking for the digitalization on the terms of not only automating the business process, it's even for how we can control the material, how we can control the flow of the material and the flow of the product, and also flow of the manpower. So everybody now start looking for how we should look to the manpower, how we should digitalize, give them a full idea about the digitalization and how it makes the difference with them on their business. So I think the last year, it's a very big game change on our field, on the computerization, digitalization, and it's a very good opportunity for us as an experts, and for the partners, our partners and the service providers, and the same to work together to provide the best for the business nowadays. So I think, yes, as you mentioned, 2020 and 2021 is a very transforming years in the digitalization age.
Thank you, Tamer. So I'll come back to you, on further questions. But George, how does this empower education? In edge computing, do you see this as an empowering thing for students learning? Obviously, a lot of remote learning is happening, but that's. No, you're not audible. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. To us in education, remote learning has changed a lot in our industry, and we had to change the concept of delivering education to students, and this is how things have been working around. When we started that year and a half ago, we were completely dependent on cloud computing, and we wanted everything to be in the cloud so that the students would have a central location to access all the information. But as we moved forward, it became more and more difficult for us because there was some delay and a lot of issues on the server capacity that we had to provide. We had to scale up a lot in order to be able to provide the service properly. This is why we started slowly moving into spreading out our applications and moving them down to the edge. And we had some servers installed in different places, and we had some applications that were able to access to use the information that is generated on a student's computer and use it at the same time. These applications have been developed by people around the world, and they are open source, available online, but they have improved the experience a little bit. And as we move forward, I see things going into that direction because people cannot wait to get the result. They cannot wait to see what is going to happen. They cannot wait to have a video take, like, for example, 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to load. We are now at an age whereby they cannot wait, and this experience will change, will differentiate the different providers, like in educational institutions, from each other. So if you stick to the old method, which is going back to the cloud and having everything in a central location, you would be falling off the race that is moving forward.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Can I hear from Claude? From a technology provider point of view, so what is your priority to you heard the CIO speak, obviously, delivering the best experience at the edge, yeah, that becomes a priority. Yeah, so what is the role that Veeam plays in that?
Yeah, so I think what's refreshing is that all my colleagues here have said that they're embracing the edge, right? They're embracing the change. That's first and foremost, right? Let's not put our head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. It is happening, and George spoke about, if you don't, you're going to be left behind, right? So that's important, to have a plan to embrace it. But with new ways of accessing, with new ways of doing business, with new ways of many things, you need to make sure that your data, which I spoke about, is your IP, most important thing of your business, is secure, accessible all the time. So having a full plan, embracing it as my colleagues have, but then putting a proper data management strategy around that to ensure continuity, that you can continue on your journey in this new way of doing work without any pitfalls or downfalls. So embracing it and then building a data management strategy around that suits that is able to help you in that way.
Thank you. Can I hear from Saymaad? Would you want to talk about CX? How it helps enhance CX customer experience in manufacturing?
I'll continue what.
Or in general, yeah.
So we live in an era where data means everything. Innovation is expected to travel at the speed of light. While millennials gradually becoming our target customers, or existing customers, unfortunately not getting any younger, we face another major challenge, which is in customer experience. And I call it the wheel of death. The millennials, as they are not used to waiting. They want all the information now. They're used to getting everything now. And the users, as a user of our technology, as a user of our product, if they don't get the information right there when they refresh their smartphone, they will probably go to Google and they will search from some other provider who has better customer service. And the existing users who are not getting younger are obviously going to call somebody in the office. Now, how do we balance this? We have to make sure that there is a balance there. The people who are working in back office are not overloaded, and the chatbot and any service that we are providing to enhance customer experience is balancing out, is there to help ease the pressure on the team. So one of the biggest advantages offered by edge computing stems from the fact that it allows businesses to store and process data closer to their users, where they are located. Thus, this not only enhances latency response times, but it helps us in improving customer experience by building faster applications, by delivering content, making sure that the content is fresh. There is dynamic content caching, the image optimization is there. So all of this helps the organization in becoming more agile and ensure that the information getting across to the customer is always relevant and up to date.
Yeah, thank you. Arun, now it's your turn. I want to hear from you. As a again a service provider.
Yeah.
Finesse. So how do you take this as a priority to enhance the experience of application? How your customers experience their applications at the edge.
Yeah, there are two aspects. I have been CIO for last 35, 40 years, the last day being 4th of July. So I'm very new to the other side of the table. So it's very
Okay, you
recent,
can.
my association with Finesse as technical advisor. So I'm still in that hangover of the CIO. So let me play both the things. And one thing I have always practiced is that as a CIO and also as an advisor, we need to be cautious and alert, not to get swayed and get fully carried away by a technology. That's how our industry is. Every other day, industry will drop a new terminology, and many CIOs tend to get carried away in that. You remember what happened? Why Y2K happened? Because we had become too jubilant trying to save the data space, and hence the entire world got into the problem of Y2K. So I would like to caution the industry. Let us move cautiously. Let's not get carried away too much of edge computing. It might have its side effects. Having said that, what we are trying to avoid is the congestion, the response time, considering the, as my friend said, millennials and all other typical generational characteristics. That's the problem. Resiliency, response time, traffic, congestion, all those things would get addressed. But at the same time, what it would also bring a challenge is the cyber security, the data management, those type of things. So when we are moving aggressively with a lot of jubilance, we also need to take into consideration what are the security aspects, what is our data management and governance policy. My friend, he talked about that. And I can see 2-3 major sectors where it's going to impact heavily. One is on the security side, things like facial recognition at the airports and those type of places. You don't need to move your data from here to there. Things need to be done on the spot, and that's where it will play a role. On the manufacturing side, we heard from one of our colleagues, your entire manufacturing process is undergoing a massive change. So it's there. And the third one is with respect to customer experience, retail, and all those type of industry. Everywhere it's going to impact, but caution needs to be there. We must be very, very alert and cautious in terms of cyber security, data management, governance policies, so on and so forth. But it's going to happen in a bigger way. That's what my take would be.
Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned retail.
Yes.
Would you be able to elaborate a bit on that? How this is.
See, in large number of industries on the retail side, there's a lot of transactions happening in a remote manner. Okay, and the consumer, when the load goes on the remote buying, the consumer also starts looking at the response which he or she will get from the system. And if all such entities, if they remain in a centralized mode whereby everything is going in the cloud and coming back, obviously it will show an impact on the response, and they might lose out on their consumers because similar thing is available in other places also. What is the differentiating factor between two banks? Why do you choose a bank over the other? It's purely how you are getting service, how minimal you have to go physically to a bank. That's what gives you popularity and more acceptance. Of course, security is important. So that's how I was saying the transition in the retail from your physical stores to online buying, that's going to influence this type of computing model. Only thing I don't like in this term is, again, the industry has started computing with lot of difficulty. We came out of this. When I started my career 40 years back, I was working for data processing department. And now, at the end of my career, or at the start of my Arun Tewary 2.0, I'm again seeing the same thing. That looks very ridiculous. So we need to think of some very glamorous term, Baba, no computing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Arun, for those insights. Mr. Claude, you heard Arun, share his perspectives. Your response to all that, how it's, how do you see this? Is this just a rehash of, or is this a trend that we really need to embrace and take it forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a trend that I think we have to embrace, right? And Arun spoke about something that's important, right, in terms of what makes you choose, what differentiates you as a consumer to choose between two organizations or two offerings, right? And it's important that look and feel appeals to everybody, right? Because we have choice. We have choice. I'm also in a mindset of, let's not rush in it too quickly, right? I mean, let's not try throw all our eggs into that basket, right? It's fit for purpose, right? It doesn't have to. You don't have to make everyone fit onto this new model. There's always going to be a hybrid, right? So we've seen the way the pandemic has changed. We moved very much to decentralized. It's coming back, right, to a bit of centralized and decentralized. So we need to adopt the new changes. It's not one or the other. It's very much a mix of the two. And it's about you as an organization adapting to both of those, right? And again, right, the big thing around the data management and security are paramount in both those conversations. So very much a hybrid of both, and don't throw everything into one way, and utilize fit for purpose is what I'd say.
Thank you, Claude. Mr. Tamer, how do you see this from the? I think he just went off. The video just went off.
No. I was just unmuting,
yeah.
and then I just
yeah. So again, your take on this. How do we embrace this? I mean, you already mentioned a few things in the opening.
I think we already understand this, and we already started on this projects. I mean, you will not find any of the organizations right now which didn't start yet on this projects. This is what I need to focus on, which I think most of us they didn't discuss right now, which is how we should convince, working between the CIOs and the partners, how we should work together to convince the business owners and the board directors or the business owners, how we could convince them to start applying such a technology or such a computer ages, which we are talking about from any perspective. I'm not talking about specific perspective. I'm talking from any perspective. So how we should put the return of investment model, because everybody is talking about the return of investment. Everybody is working on an ROI plan, an ROI data sheet, which we are preparing and providing for the business owners. But how we should prepare not an ROI equation, we should prepare an ROI scenario or ROI plan, full plan, which is telling you by this time, by this effort, by implementing such things, by such a deliverables, you can achieve, or you can do the proper ROI of this projects which you are implementing. This, I am convinced that we have to implement. I'm very much convinced that I need to implement a very high technology or digitalization part in my organization. But how should I convince the CEO? How I should convince the COO, the Chief Operation Officer, that this is something which make a change with you? That's something which is going to help you in doing such a things. And everybody is telling, no, let us wait. We are not ready. The situation now is not clear, and that's what we are all hearing about. I think Saymaad hearing the same. Everybody is working on the same field as we are. As a CIO, we are hearing the same from everyone. So the point here, the ball here is the other side, on the partner side. How the partners can help us preparing the right ROI, the right plan, not the ROI as a calculation and the Excel sheet, and that's no. We need a very big equation and the plan, full plan, with bits and cons on this plan, that how we should make the 100 dirhams which you are going to spend, we are going to return it back for you. Not only 100, we are going to return it back to you by 200 or 300, plus growing on the business, plus more control, plus more security. So that's how we should work together as a CIOs and partners to deliver to the business owners and to the organization what exactly they are looking for. I think this is the key of how we should go through and break even what we discuss about.
Thank you, Tamer. Obviously, yes. This is
I don't know if I clear it. I make it clear or not, but I hope it's somehow clear.
So this is about obviously a confidence building. You need to, everybody needs to work together. The stakeholders need to be taken into confidence on the initiatives that deliver tangible outcomes in the short to medium and even longer term. Yeah. So
we couldn't say tangible, but we could say something close to tangible, which is give confidence, something confidence. Let me be more clear. Something which make the business owner more confidence about implementing and applying such a technology or such a solutions.
Does anyone have an opinion to offer on this? If anybody wants to share an insight on this, or I'll just go to Saymaad. I'll ask him a specific question. Saymaad,
I have a quick advice.
Yeah,
we are writing a book, me and one of the senior industry colleagues here, Governance and Digital Transformation, which is scheduled to be released by October or November this year. That talks about this. So the best thing would be to hand it over to your CEO and board, and half the job is done. And I'll give you a complimentary copy of that.
That's great. Saymaad, I would like to hear your view on the security aspects. I mean, possibly from the couple of companies that the few companies that you work with. So how has this been, and how do you think edge computing can impact how these things need to be taken into consideration?
Yes,
is it more of streamlining operations at the back end, or is it also at the front end experience?
No, we have to be sure the threat landscape exponentially stretches with the addition of cloud, with the addition of UIODs, with the addition of every device that comes into the action, with every node coming into the action. There would be threats. It will always increase. Managing risk in such an environment requires that the organization fully considers the exposure to threats and vulnerabilities coming into play and arising from misconfigurations, poor access control, shared tenancy, backdoors within the architectures, or outdated devices which are coming into play, or applications and devices which are not properly tested. So when we are adapting to it, as an organization, we should always be ready that there would be repercussions, and there always are going to be security rules which we have to look into. Finding a comprehensive security strategy is absolute must. Sometimes, especially in the manufacturing, sometimes the data has to stay within a specific country or within the specific state for regulations and contractual information. the patents, recipes, molds, dyes, method of manufacturing, all these should not leave the state or at least the country. They should stay in the country for our customers to have more confidence on us. We cannot put everything on the cloud. This I believe Tamer would also be going through coming from the manufacturing backend. In terms of financial services, healthcare, oil and gas, and other industries, we have to make sure that the regulations and the data privacy laws of every country that we deal are being maintained. What I see is with edge computing, you can control that because you have control over where your workloads are running. You have control where your data resides while using the same operational tools, the same operating tooling, and the same monitoring and the stability what you would get from one cloud provider or one data center provider. With edge computing, it also is providing you low